They'll tell you Libra is sweet, charming, peaceful. But here's the truth. Libra is a battlefield dressed in silk, a war between truth and harmony, a mirror that reflects everyone and sometimes no one. Beneath that poised exterior are secrets, a mind sharper than justice, a heart that hides storms to keep the sky clear for others, a soul haunted by the weight of fairness in an unfair world. You think Libra avoids conflict? No, they absorb it. They rearrange themselves to prevent it. They walk on glass so others can walk on peace. That's not weakness, that's sacred strength. Because Libra isn't here to shine alone. Libra is here to balance the cosmos. There is a moment in the soul's journey when the self is no longer the center, when the I begins to listen for the echo of the thou, when life stops being a monologue and becomes a dialogue with the cosmos. This is where Libra is born, not from the fire of assertion, not from the earth of survival, not from the waters of emotion, but from the air of relationship, of reflection, of divine equilibrium. Libra is the mirror of the Zodiac, the seventh sign, the pivot between self and other, between night and day, between instinct and civilization. Libra does not possess identity. Libra relates identity. Their essence emerges not in isolation, but through connection. Look into a Libra's eyes, and you do not see a fixed personality. You see a reflection of your own becoming. You see the one who sees you. And in that gaze, something ancient stirs. For Libra, the world is a gallery of energies, and they are the curator, the alchemist of ambiance. They adjust, refine, harmonize the room so that beauty may breathe. Not just visual beauty, but the beauty of flow, of non-conflict, of unspoken alignment. The way silence falls after a perfect sentence. The grace between gestures. The architecture of intimacy. But to live as a mirror is no small feat. It demands vigilance. To notice every ripple of discord. To translate chaos into calm. To carry the weight of balance without ever showing the effort. Libra walks a tightrope strung between opposing forces, always adjusting, always attuning. This is not weakness. This is sacred labor. In myth, Libra is the scales of Themis, the goddess who sees with no eyes, only with truth. In Egypt, Ma'at weighed the hearts of the dead against a feather. Balance was not optional. It was judgment. Karma, soul worth. Libra inherits this legacy, not just to balance themselves, but to be balance. To weigh not just facts, but hearts. Not just right and wrong, but resonance and dissonance. This is why Libra is often misunderstood. Their beauty is called shallow, their diplomacy fake, their indecision weakness. But the truth lies deeper. Libra does not rush, because Libra feels what each choice will cost. They know that a word once spoken ripples through the relational web, sometimes forever. They know that to break harmony is to risk exile. And so they pause, they weigh, they reflect. In the soul's wheel, Libra is the threshold. Aries claimed the self. Taurus built the body. Gemini danced with words. Cancer remembered the womb. Leo crowned the self. Virgo refined the vessel. But Libra is the first sign that turns outward, that says, "Let me know myself through you." The first sign to feel the heartbeat of the other as sacred. To love not as possession, but as balance. To enter life as a duet, not a solo. This is why Libra people often appear as if touched by elegance. There is something refined, thoughtful, slow to offend. They listen not just to respond, they listen to understand, to match frequency, to maintain the sacred geometry of connection. Even in silence, they are composing. But this beauty, this equilibrium, this diplomacy, it is not a passive gift, it is a discipline, a spiritual vocation, because to embody the scales is to live every day as a keeper of harmony in a world that thrives on noise. It is to hold the line when others fight, to stay soft in the face of hardness, to create a temple of peace in a storm of extremes. And so, the Libra soul walks gently, but not lightly. Their smile may seem effortless, but behind it lives an eternal watchfulness, an artist of relationship, quietly redrawing the invisible threads between us all. Venus does not wear perfume in Libra, she wears ideas. This is the first secret. Most Miss Libra is ruled by Venus. Yes, but not the Venus of flesh and roses, the Venus of mind and air, where Taurus clings to comfort and tactile beauty. Libra intellectualizes love. Libra seduces through symmetry, through wit, through the way a sentence lands with precision, the way their presence seems to smooth chaos into calm. They are the artist who sketches in light and language, the lover who courts through conversation, the poet who never raises their voice but always makes you listen. Libra's Venus is not soft, it is strategic. It disarms, it arranges, it beautifies not for vanity but for influence. Because Libra knows that the world opens for elegance, that people reveal more when they feel seen, that justice delivered with grace is harder to resist. Look at history, and you'll find Venusian tact in some of Libra's greatest human mirrors. Eleanor Roosevelt, born with her moon in Libra, used poise and diplomacy to reshape human rights across nations. Oscar Wilde, with his Libra ascendant and Mercury, turned aesthetics into rebellion, beauty into weapon. And Mahatma Gandhi, whose soul held strong Libran placements, taught the world that peace itself is a force, not the absence of conflict, but the mastery of it. This is Libra's legacy, not to escape tension, but to transform it through elegance, through higher reasoning, through carefully chosen words that land like petals, but cut like truth. And so, they become magnetic. They walk into a room and adjust its climate. Their energy is curated, measured. They don't just wear clothes, they compose an atmosphere. Their voice carries harmonics. Their gaze, though gentle, is calculated, not cold, but conscious. Libra is aware that everything about them speaks. Every detail is part of the message. But what is that message? That there is another way, a more refined way, a less violent way. In a world that worships dominance, Libra embodies persuasion. Where others command, Libra compels. Where others conquer, Libra charms. They don't shout, they resonate. They don't overpower, they align. And through this resonance, they become irresistible. Yet there is danger here, because when your superpower is reflection, you can start to lose the outlines of your own face. You become what others want to see. You filter yourself for the sake of peace. You adapt until you forget what you like, what you feel, what you believe. This is the paradox of Libra's Venus. The more they harmonize with others, the more they must fight to remember their own note, to stand firm in the music of their soul, without tuning it out for someone else's melody. Still the gift remains, and it is holy. Because Venus in Libra teaches that beauty is not surface, it is structure. It is the geometry of how we relate, the rhythm of how we speak, the grace with which we disagree, the kindness embedded in tone, the choice to love not only through passion but through precision. Libra does not fall in love easily. They fall into alignment. They notice every imbalance, every offbeat, every subtle shift in dynamic. Love to them is an architecture, a carefully calibrated space between two souls where nothing collapses and everything breathes. That's why they take time. That's why they don't rush. That's why their affection feels like air, invisible, essential, and always searching for balance. To be loved by a Libra is to be invited into sacred symmetry, to be seen not just for who you are, but for who you become beside them. It is not passion that moves them most, it is equilibrium. And when they find it, it is holy. This is Venus in air, unyielding, invisible, magnetic, a force that does not conquer but composes. And Libra is her chosen voice, balance. The word glows like a halo around Libra's name. But what most don't realize is this balance is not peace. It is labor. It is sacrifice. It is the art of holding chaos in one hand and calm in the other, and never letting either spill. To be born under Libra is to carry the scales of the gods, not the scales of measurement or judgment alone, but the scales that measure the weight of truth against silence, of what is said versus what is felt, of justice versus belonging. Libra feels this weight constantly, even in the smallest interactions. When someone speaks too loud, they quiet themselves. When tempers rise, they shift the energy. They modulate, absorb, mediate, compose, until everyone breathes easier, except themselves. This is the third secret. Libra is not balanced, they are balancing. Always, actively. And that balance is a tightrope they must walk alone. You see it in their eyes, always scanning, always calculating, not out of coldness, but out of deep moral responsibility. Libra isn't trying to control people. They're trying to maintain a sacred equilibrium that they feel collapsing around them. They feel injustice in their bones. They ache when something is unfair, not just for themselves, but for anyone. This is why many Libras become mediators, judges, designers, diplomats, peacekeepers, artists. They aren't just talented, they're called. They know what most don't, that justice is not blind. It's attentive. It sees all, feels all. It weighs every action not in isolation, but in consequence. Libra carries this burden, like a priest carries sacred texts, knowing the truth within them can both heal and divide. So they tread carefully. They speak softly, not because they lack conviction, but because they know how words can wound. They avoid extremes, not because they fear passion, but because they know imbalance breeds chaos. And yet, this devotion to balance comes at a cost. There's a secret sadness in many Libras, a fatigue that comes from constantly adjusting to others, a quiet rage that comes from seeing unfairness and being told to stay neutral, a loneliness that blooms in the space between extremes, where Libra often lives. Because while others get to scream, to demand, to collapse, Libra stays composed. While others take sides, Libra stays in the center. While others protect their own peace, Libra becomes the peace. And eventually this wears them down. They begin to wonder who is holding the scale for me, who is creating balance for me. The world assumes Libra is fine. After all, they smile. They dress well. They're polite. They never explode. But beneath the calm is often a storm. Beneath the diplomacy is a truth that's been silenced too long. Because here lies the fourth secret hidden beneath the scales. Libra is not afraid of conflict. They're afraid of losing connection. They'll avoid a fight, not because they're weak, but because to them conflict feels like disintegration, like the relationship itself is collapsing. And for Libra, who lives through relationship that collapse, feels like death. So, instead of erupting, they yield. Instead of accusing, they question. Instead of breaking, they bend. And the world calls this grace, but Libra knows it is also grief. Still, they keep holding the scale. Still, they keep seeking balance in beauty, in truth, in love. Because to them, balance isn't an aesthetic, it's a sacred law. And even when their arms tremble, even when no one thanks them, even when the weight is unbearable, Libra holds it anyway, because they know, without the scales, the world falls to one side, and someone has to stand in the center. They smile with grace, speak with calm, and often seem effortlessly composed. But beneath Libra's surface lies an inner complexity few truly understand. Here's the deeper truth. Libra isn't afraid of choice. They are attuned to its consequences. In every decision, they instinctively feel the ripple effect, not just how it affects them, but how it might shift the balance for everyone around them. They see both sides, not metaphorically, but viscerally. Every option opens a door and closes another, and Libra feels responsible for what each door might lead to. This creates a kind of psychological pressure. For most, choosing is a matter of preference. For Libra, it's a sacred calculation of fairness, emotional impact, relational harmony. They don't simply ask what to choose. They ask how that choice will echo in the lives it touches. This mental weighing doesn't mean they lack clarity. It means they carry a heightened awareness of nuance, a gift that can become a burden when not honored. And so they often yield, not because they're spineless, but because they're sensitive to tension, to conflict, to the discomfort that arises when energies fall out of alignment. They adapt, they accommodate, they make room for others to breathe. But in doing so, Libra risks something profound, the slow fading of their own voice. They nod along to keep peace. They defer when disagreement threatens the mood. They present a polished image, even when their inner truth is shaking. And while this earns them praise, polite, pleasant, agreeable, it comes at a private cost. Because when your life becomes a gallery of others' needs, you start to forget what your own soul longs for. Over time, the imbalance shows a vague dissatisfaction, a relationship that feels emotionally one-sided, a career that looks beautiful from the outside but lacks meaning, a growing desire to scream in a room you once worked so hard to keep silent. This is Libra's inner tipping point, when harmony begins to feel like a cage. And then comes the realization, peace without authenticity isn't peace at all, it's performance. This turning is quiet but radical. It's the moment Libra stops asking, will this make others comfortable, and starts asking, does this reflect who I am? It's not about becoming harsh or confrontational. It's about reclaiming truth as a form of love. Because Libra isn't here to keep things polite. They're here to align them, to bring beauty and justice into resonance. And sometimes that requires discomfort. They begin to speak clearly, not to provoke, but to express. They make choices that prioritize their well-being, even if they disappoint others. They show up unfiltered and find that real connection doesn't dissolve. In truth, it deepens. This evolution doesn't mean abandoning harmony. It means redefining it, no longer a fragile truce built on silence, but a living balance rooted in mutual authenticity. And when Libra steps into this version of themselves, whole, unhidden, unafraid, they become what they were always meant to be, not just a mirror for others, but a light that illuminates truth, fairness, and beauty starting from within. Libra is often mistaken for someone who simply wants relationships, but the truth is deeper. They are wired for them. To Libra, connection is not an accessory. It is a necessity, a sacred architecture through which they understand life itself. They don't merely enter relationships, they craft them with care, with precision, with the soul of a designer and the heart of a healer. Where Aries says, I am Libra, answers we become. This is the fifth secret. Libra is the Zodiac's architect of relationship. They are not content with surface attraction. They long to build something lasting, elegant, and emotionally functional. A partnership that works not just in passion, but in rhythm. To them, love is structure, and the blueprint is alignment. They sense dynamics the way a composer hears harmony, subtle, layered, alive. They can tell when one person is giving too much, when another is pulling away, when something is being left unsaid. And instead of reacting, they adjust, calibrate, shift. They are relational engineers, constructing equilibrium where others build control or chaos. But this power does not make them manipulative. It makes them attuned. Libra's gift is their ability to feel what's unsaid, to sense emotional climates like changes in the wind, to listen with their whole body, not just to words, but to tone, silence, gaze. They don't just understand people, they read them. This is why so many Libras become counselors, diplomats, artists of social space. They hold the middle ground, the bridge between differing hearts. They are the friend who mediates tension without taking sides, the partner who notices disconnection before it becomes distance, the stranger who somehow makes everyone feel at ease. But even this sacred role has a shadow. Because when your soul is built for we, it's easy to forget me. Libra may fall into relationships too quickly drawn by the magnetism of potential, the promise of togetherness. They may compromise too early too often in order to make it work. They may shape-shift, dim, or delay their truth, all in service of maintaining the delicate system of us. And when this pattern repeats, Libra may wake up in connection after connection, wondering why they still feel unseen, why the harmony feels hollow, why their own desires sound distant, like echoes in someone else's story. This is the soul lesson. True union does not ask for self-abandonment, and Libra must learn that real partnership begins only when two whole selves meet, not when one disappears for the other's comfort. So they begin the sacred process of recentering, of choosing relationships not just for peace, but for truth, of recognizing that saying no is a form of love, that boundaries are the frame around the masterpiece. In this space, Libra becomes unstoppable, not because they dominate, but because they discern. They know what works, what doesn't, what gives life, and what drains it. They become the sculptor of love that honors the self within the shared. And those who meet Libra at this stage feel the difference. They don't encounter someone who needs a relationship. They encounter someone who knows how to build one, someone who holds space with grace, who speaks gently but firmly, who knows when to yield and when to stand still. Someone who is not here to be completed, but to collaborate. Because in their highest form, Libra is not just the partner. They are the temple of relationship itself, where love, fairness, and beauty converge, not for perfection, but for balance that breathes. Beneath Libra's grace is not fragility, it's law. Not man's law, but cosmic justice. They are not just lovers of peace. They are the guardians of balance in a world forever tilting. This is Libra's final secret. They aren't here to be liked. They're here to realign the universe, even when it costs them comfort, even when no one notices the effort, even when the world mistakes their stillness for indecision. Libra is the sign of karmic equilibrium, of Ma'at, who weighed souls against a feather, of Astrea, the goddess of justice, who stayed behind until Earth no longer deserved her. Libra remembers what others forget, that without balance, love becomes control, beauty becomes illusion, and peace becomes silence. When awakened, Libra doesn't just maintain harmony, they define it. They say what others won't, calmly, clearly. They choose fairness over favor. They walk with elegance, but never without direction. They know the cost of speaking up, and speak anyway. This is Libra's divine vocation, to shape a world where symmetry is sacred, where clarity is kind, where justice is not vengeance but restoration. Because when Libra stops performing and starts embodying, they become the scale itself, unshakable, discerning, and true. A presence that doesn't mirror the world, but quietly reorders it.